You know, we're in this study about being a gospeler. And as we've explained, a gospeler is someone who is zealous about sharing the gospel and zealous about their faith. This becomes vitally crucial in understanding our role as Christians because, quite honestly, we can get caught up. I mean, as Christians, what are some of the things we're supposed to do? We're supposed to read the Bible. We're supposed to pray. We're supposed to go to church. We're supposed to tithe. We're supposed to be nice to people. We're supposed to treat others with respect. We're supposed to be integrated in the community, but not be a part of the world. We've got all of these things, and if we're not careful, the essence of who we're to be, who we're called to be, can be quickly lost. Last words are important. Jesus in Matthew chapter 28 would say these words, and I'm just going to read them to you just straight out. He would say it this way: "All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teach them to observe all things that I have commanded you." Those are Jesus' words to us. What I don't hear in that is a whole lot of clutter. I mean, it's a very concise mission. It's directed toward us, and it's calling something out of us. It's basic. It's to the point. It's not fuddled or muddled with all of these other things. And I think if we're not careful, doing that, being a gospeler, it can quite quickly be lost in the clutter of all that we think that we need to do as a Christian. When Jesus' last words to us were very clear, very concise: go into all the world, preach the gospel to everyone, teach them to observe the things that he said. It's not as hard as we make it sometimes. You may be wondering where we're at. This is Plainview Baptist Church. This is the church that I grew up in. That changed a bit. And I was saved here. As a matter of fact, I'm saved just right over there. Well, that's really not the case. I was really saved at home, but it was kind of more of a confirmation moment as I came and knelt in this altar, and Pastor Clinton Garman and W.C. Shaw and others gather around me and begin to pray and minister to my young soul. It was June of 1989. Now here's the thing, I can't tell you the date. I don't know which Sunday in June of 1989 that I was saved. I just know that there was a point in my life where I began my spiritual journey. Now, the mission that God has called us into as Christians, as believers, is already directed to us. As we talked about earlier, Jesus made it clear, and all of our mission can be tracked back to Jesus. Which raises the question, how did you get here? Now, if we're talking about just ancestry, just general genealogies, that's something that interests a lot of us. I know it interests me. In school, we had to do a family tree and turn it in as a project. And I was able to track back some of our roots into England and a little bit into Germany. The term Everett, my last name Everett, is a Germanic derivative. It's Eberhard, which meant wild boar. I don't get that, but that's who we are. And so that stuff interests me, and it became increasingly interesting to observe all the things that had to come into play, how this person had to meet this person and overcome this obstacle for this person to be born, which led up to me. There were statistically, it's astronomically inconceivable to think of all the things that had to fall into line perfectly for me to be born, for you to be born today. In 2022, Ancestry.com did a poll that they revealed that 50% of all the people in the United States, a little over half, right at half of the people in the United States, could not name all four of their grandparents. That is just staggering to think about. I mean, that's insane that you know, some people can't name all four of their grandparents. Now, let me take you to a different level. Spiritually speaking, how did you get here? What brought you to this point? And I began to think about all of the mathematical impossibilities that went into play to bring me into a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. How I had to be born, and then my parents they were divorced and would come from a broken home, and my mom was working at a plant in Calhoun, and she befriended a lady who had a brother who was also divorced, and so they ended up dating, and he was attending this church here, Willie Baptist Church. We didn't have a home church at the time. My mom, her dad was a preacher. My grandfather, I went to church periodically with an uncle of mine, but we really didn't have a home church. And this became our home church that my mom's husband would end up taking us to. And it would be here that people would pour into my soul as a 8-year-old boy, about to become 9 years old. They would proclaim the gospel. I would hear magnificent messages from Pastor Garman, who had a history of pastoring large churches, but he would come to this small church and invest his life into a small group of people, the latter years of his life, as a matter of fact. And he would pour into us and preach to us like there were 500 or 1,000 in this room. It was just amazing, the passion of that man and the clearness and conciseness of the gospel that he would proclaim. It would bring me to the point of understanding that there is a such thing as an ancestral Christianity, a genealogy, if you will, something that got me to this point. All these things had to fall into place, and then I had to meet Miss Ruth Gray. Let me introduce you to Ruth Gray. Now this is Ruth Gray. Miss Ruth was such an influential part in my gospel journey. I mean, she was the gospeler in my life. Just kind of give you a little bit of background. Miss Ruth loved kids. She served at the local schools here as a lunch lady, and just found a sincere need to feed children. Now, Ruth would step back and she would come into the church, and she would bring that same passion into her local church, where she would minister to kids. She taught Sunday school classes. She was a fantastic Sunday school teacher, especially for kids. Now, Miss Ruth was one of those people that in church culture, a lot of people would say she might have been a little much. That was just her. One, she had a hyper sense of humor. I mean, it was all over the place. Secondly, you could not keep her quiet for nothing. She was just a boisterous personality, always making jokes, not afraid to testify, not afraid to brag about what her Lord has done in her life. And when it came to us as kids, she began to develop certain spiritual characteristics in us, and having us lead prayer, even in our primary Sunday school class, in ministering to our needs and listening to us and understanding where we come from. She was just that voice of reason and ministry. And when I had such a crisis in my life, when my mom and stepdad were about to marry, and I was having such an internal struggle and conflicts, she was the one who got on the phone and took time on a Saturday evening and began to explain in depth what she had already told us dozens of times, and that was the story of Jesus, the gospel of Jesus Christ, and how it could change me and help me with this hate and anger that I was experiencing so passionately.
And right there on the phone on a Saturday evening, she led me to Christ. Now, yes, the next Sunday morning I did go to the altar and pray, but that was really more a formality than anything. It was Ruth Gray, this lady right here, who would lead me to Christ. It would be Ruth who would, and I know I'm speaking to a Baptist church, who would begin to prophesy, and I don't have a better word for it than that. Prophesy over my life. She would tell me that she had a dream of me sitting in one of the pastoral chairs in front of a congregation, leading a congregation. She said that there was no doubt in her heart that Lord would call me to preach and call me to be a minister and call me to pastor a church. And that scared me to death. I was 8 years old when she would tell me these things. But she would pray for me. She would minister to me. You see, her gospeler story didn't end in just leading me to Christ, but she would also disciple me and help turn me into the man that God has brought out of me today. So yeah, Miss Ruth Gray, I mean, she's just got such a place in my life.
You know, that was Miss Ruth. Miss Ruth would end up with cancer. I would get to see my first healing as I would go to her house and pray over her. I'm not saying that God used me to heal her or anything. But 2 weeks after we went and prayed, she was on hospice. She was able to come back to church and have a couple of years cancer-free. The cancer came back and took her life. But it didn't take her legacy. It did not take away the mark that she left in my soul when she was willing to be a gospeler, a person zealous about sharing the gospel and sharing her faith with folks like me. To invest into my life and to care enough about me to ask the difficult questions and venture into the messy places to share the love of Jesus Christ with me. You see, I cannot interject myself into your personal history. I can't become part of your family tree. But what I can do is I can become part of someone's gospel genealogy. I can become part of their biblical heritage, their faith ancestry. And that's what I want you to be wanting to do. I want you to want to interject yourself into someone's history, their gospel history, because this place, it means everything to me. But this is not me anymore. This is part of who I am. It always will be. It contributes to even my children's gospel genealogy. But the mission is forward, not backwards. The mission is, who else can I take the model that Ruth has shown me? And who can I be a gospel to? Who can I share the love of Christ?